I'm depressed and I have a headache. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review a movie that I think, in this community of Arrow Video Blu-rays and stuff like that, of, movies from the 80s, slasher movies and stuff. I think this coming out, I think this came out on Blu-ray on Arrow Video in like January of this year, 2020. And I know in the months, prior and stuff, after it was announced and stuff, I mean, I think it had, the horror Blu-ray, Arrow Video Blu-ray retro horror movie collecting crowd excited and interested, and I was too. I was interested and excited in this this release coming out and stuff. Never having heard of this movie, I'm coming at you to review the movie from 1988 by the name of Edge of the Axe. As I said, I'd never heard of this movie before until the announcement of the upcoming, at the time, whatever, 3-4 months ago, when it was announced, the upcoming Arrow Video Blu-ray presentation of this movie. And of course now it's been on Blu-ray for a couple months. Once again, I think it came out on Blu-ray in January of this year. And this is a title that, being interested in these kind of movies, especially from the 80s and stuff, I was, more or less interested in. From what I understand, this is like a Spanish production, kind of like the movie Pieces from the early 80s. The movie Pieces I've reviewed on this channel many, many, many years ago. It's a movie that I saw when I was 13, actually like 30 years ago. This year, I think, I saw Pieces for the first time, and that's a movie that I probably saw it a little too young, but what the hell, I was seeing horror movies at 11 and 12 and stuff. But that's a movie, a Spanish production, that I would regard as just, a really, 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 really great example of, a Spanish horror movie and stuff, and just exploitation and just gore and nudity, female nudity and all this kind of stuff. So I was excited about the prospect of Edge of the Axe coming to Arrow Video Blu-ray, and I was over as the weeks and months wore on and stuff, I was kind of contemplating blind buying it. It's the trend that's been going on in the past couple years that really kind of started, in my opinion, or I noticed it first really with the Blu-ray release of Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. It's just like the pricing, I think, is going up. Like these companies that are making these these Blu-rays, like Scream Factory and Shout Factory and Arrow Video and stuff. And it's like they think, people, and I guess they probably do, they figure, well, this stuff is really popular, people will probably pay more for it. And it's just like this, in the last 2 or 3 years, this, uptick, this spike in the price of these releases. And it's just like, this release, or the Arrow Video release of this movie, is like $28, and it's a single disc, probably with, I don't know what the special features are on this release, but I mean, single disc. I don't think it's like they even have like a limited edition of it, unless the first run is a limited edition. I don't know, but I was just like, single disc, $28. I'm like, I had a feeling about this movie, like not a good one, and I opted to actually just rent it for streaming on Prime Video for $2, because I'm like, you know what, I have this feeling about this movie that I don't feel comfortable paying upwards of $30 to blind buy this. And so I streamed it for a rental for $2, and it's the Arrow Video transfer, so you're getting to see all the greatness and glory of the Arrow Video transfer for $2, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. Because before I start my review here, I'll simply say that, in my opinion, this is not a movie that's anywhere near like worth $28. Oh my gosh. So anyway, on to my review of Edge of the Axe. Before I start the review, sorry, I will say that like Arrow Video did, I can only imagine it's like an Arrow Video trailer that's on their YouTube channel or whatever. And I gotta say, don't be fooled by this trailer. They did a great job at cutting this, like, this, I can only imagine it's using their, their new transfer and basically making a new, from what it looks like, a new a new trailer, an Arrow Video made trailer, if you will, of Edge of the Axe. And it looks really spiffy and slam bang and really, really cool, and it almost was enough to make me blind buy this for $28. But luckily, I trust my instincts, and it's just like, oh my gosh. So The review or the movies, the movie. Okay, I can do this. The movie starts with, and one thing I will say about this movie is it's shot. I don't know if it's shot in California, but it's shot in this really, really kind of beautiful area where, if and on the rare occasions we do get like exterior footage and stuff, it's really, really pretty, and the opening of the movie is really pretty with, just the trees and the small town kind of atmosphere as the bikers, driving in and stuff. But the movie opens with this kind of cool scene at some car wash where this woman's going through a car wash, and then the killer. And one thing I do want to say before I start the review is the masked killer look with his, like, I don't know, kind of, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Of course, this movie came out first. Almost kind of like a slicker raincoat and boots, and he's got this the crowning cool thing about the killer, the appearance of the killer, is this really goofy kind of mask that is really kind of cool. It's just like, I don't think it has any holes except like the 2 eye holes, and it's just all white and really kind of creepy looking. But this woman's going through a car wash, and it's just kind of boring or whatever, and when she comes out the other side, this killer is standing there, and she's like, and it's really kind of cool slow motion, crashes through the windshield and hacks her up, and she's just like, kind of slides down the window. And that's the opening scene to open the movie, and then the opening credits happen when this guy on the motorcycle's coming in and stuff. And as cool as like that kill was or whatever, I was kind of like, well, the slow motion of the breaking window and stuff was cool, but it's like we don't, compared to what we see in Pieces and stuff, we're not really seeing anything. Or maybe I'm just in my older age, just this stuff doesn't affect me. I don't think it's as, really very effective. I think that's the reason that it doesn't really affect me. But, the kills in the movie are kind of cool, and then kind of not so great at the same time. Basically, this movie is about this one guy on this motorcycle. I don't know how long he's been gone. He comes back to, I don't know if this older guy is his dad, or if he's just, renting from this guy or what, but he shows up on his motorcycle, and he's got, he shows up to this house, and he's got some like kind of goofy ass looking house out back, and shows up to this old guy who's bitching about, oh, they just delivered another one of your electricity draining devices. And he's like, oh boy, my new computer's here. And of course this is the late 80s, and they're all trying to, this is, the 80s is when the personal computers and stuff really kind of started, and they're trying to, the 80s, of course, is when they really kind of rolled out this, computer stuff, PC stuff on people, and started having it. When I was a kid in grade school in the 80s, I mean, they had a whole room dedicated, they're full of these computers. And it's just, what's so pathetic about computers in the 80s, where they compared to what they can do now, they like did absolutely nothing worth really of any kind of value in the 80s. So it was really kind of funny how they made such a big deal about them and stuff, when really they couldn't do basically much of really anything. This kid's all excited about the arrival of the new computer, and this old guy's like, yeah, they're just, power drainers. The last electricity bill almost killed me. And the kid goes in, and, we kind of just get introduced to this young kid who's like a computer geek, or maybe not a geek, but a computer whiz or whatever. And it's like, oh boy. So trying my best not to do a beat by beat. It's easier to not do a beat by beat of a movie review if I don't really like the movie. So I think I will be successful not doing a beat by beat review of this movie. Basically, the gist of this movie is, this guy and this other guy. There's this other guy who's like married to an older woman. It's like none of the characters. I mean, the characters don't really have any character. No one's really very interesting in this movie. I mean, as the movie wore on, I mean, it was really quickly evident, like right away. Like, all of a sudden I realized I'm like 20 minutes into the movie, and it's just like, holy shit, like, Friday the 13th movie or something is more interesting in the first 5 minutes than this is in the first, 20 or 30 minutes of it. And it's just like, so basically what happens is this computer whiz kid hooks up with this cute blonde, and, this cute blonde is really got a cute look, and that's probably, the casting of this blonde girl is probably one of my favorite things about this movie, because she's really got that girl next door, innocent, kind of just pretty blonde girl thing about her. So I appreciate the casting of her, and I think, the scenes with her are just the best, because she just, I don't know, comes across really well as this cute, innocent little young blonde girl or whatever. But he hooks up with her, not hooks up in the 21st century fashion, but meets up with her and brings her back to his place, and shows her the computer, and he's like, well, I've got this old one here, that, you know, I can give to you. And she's like, oh, can we, you know, communicate whenever we want on them? And he's like, yeah. It's kind of like a, you know, a chat, or I don't know if you could really, well, I imagine you could, I imagine there was some kind of internet in the 80s. We didn't have internet until like, you know, the late, like 99 or 98 or something like that. So I can't imagine internet in the 80s was anything of anything. And what's so funny is she's like, oh boy, so when I get the, you know, if I get your old computer, we can communicate whenever we want. And it's just like, well, gosh, you know, telephones do exist already. You know, you've probably got one of those. And it's just so funny, like how, it's just like I said, like in the 80s, it's just like if you went to public school or even a private school or whatever, it's like they had a room devoted to them, and it's like they were just shoving computers down our throats like, well, obviously they were going to become something of an importance into the future or whatever, and that was the whole point of being shoved down our throat. But like I say, when we were introduced to them in the 80s, they were just so pathetic. It's just like, looking back on it, it's just like, oh my gosh, and the printers, and you know, what the printers could print was just like jack shit of nothing, and koala pads and all this stuff. Anyway, I digress. So, you know, this computer whiz kid's got or not a kid, I mean maybe early 20s something's guy. He's got some friend who, as I said, is married to some older woman and this guy's like cheating on her, you know, going out on a boat with this younger girl. And you know, they have all these details that, you know, the beginning of the movie starts with, and it's just like they never go anywhere with any of them. It's like the whole movie, by the time you get like 30 or 45 minutes into the movie, you're basically, as a viewer, or at least I was, very much aware of the fact that it's like the whole movie is filler. It's like, that's it. I mean, even the kills, for the most part, while you can tell they're like from a Spanish production company, because they're kind of cool in the sense that, but at the same time it's almost sloppy, because there's several of them are like, you know, you can tell there's like a blood tube in the axe, and they're, without any cuts, they're just showing like, you know, a woman like just writhing in pain, and the axe kind of going like this repeatedly on her body and her back and stuff. And it's kind of cool because, you know, in America we're used to cutting and stuff, which I would agree ultimately is kind of more creative and better. And you know, this is so the kills do have like a European feel to them, like where it's not necessarily what you normally see in America. So that's kind of good, but then also kind of bad, because it does come across as like sloppy and just almost lazy. It's like, well, let's not even do coverage because that just takes time, so we'll just roll, you know, master shot and just have an axe like just repeatedly do this, and we'll have blood come out of it, so you know, she's getting bloody and stuff. So I was really surprised, because as I said, that presumably Arrow Video cut trailer they did really made this movie look really just campy fun, gory kind of fun, and just like a really, really great late 80s horror movie, you know, romp. Like I say, you know, you got to give Arrow Video or whoever cut their trailer credit, because it really takes this, what I would regard as more or less really kind of boring, well, let's not mince words, boring movie, and cut a trailer together that really makes it actually look like it's enjoyable in some way. So as I said, this movie is just full of characters and scenes, for that matter, that really have no, they don't, I mean, the characters in most of the scenes, well, you can pretty much say pretty much all the characters and all the scenes that happen in this movie, more or less, are just not interesting in my opinion. You've got this sheriff guy, your cliched sheriff guy, and like there's 2 times in the movie where he shows up. I think he shows up at the same place, this church, the 2 times in the movie he shows up. His cop lights on top of his car are going. He pulls up, you know, gets out, leaves the keys in the ignition, you know, goes into the church, and the lights are still flashing. It's like, it's not even an emergency, and why are your lights on, and you left your keys in the car. And then later on, and towards the end of the movie, he shows up at the same church and another cop guy or whatever shows up and leaves his lights on too when he gets out. And it's just like, what the hell is going on? And the movie, as I said, from, you know, when I watched it, I was halfway, or well, before that, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes into it, I was very much aware that I made a very, very good choice by not blind buying this for, you know, $28 on Blu-ray and only spent $2 to stream it. It's just like, oh my gosh, my feeling was right about this movie. Like, I just had this feeling that, you know, the cover looks cool and the trailer looks cool, that Arrow Video cut, but I just had this little voice that said, don't do it, don't do it. And I didn't do it, and oh my gosh, you know, I'm glad. You know, one would think with a movie like this that if nothing else, you would at least get some like late 80s, you know, a plethora of late 80s cheese to laugh at. This movie doesn't even offer that. A lot of times, like for a movie that's a perfect example of a stellar blind buy that I did years and years ago, maybe, I don't know if it was 4 years ago at this point, was, you know, Arrow Video's release on Blu-ray of Blood Rage. That was a movie that I saw the trailers like on Arrow Video's YouTube or whatever, or clips or whatever, and I was like, you know what, this footage that I'm seeing and this trailers or whatever I'm seeing is just, this movie is going to be dynamite. I blind bought Blood Rage at the time, and was absolutely delivered exactly what I was hoping for. Just this non-stop, except for when you got those scenes of the mom character, you know, writhing on the floor in the kitchen, just eating stuff off the floor or whatever. But for the most part, Blood Rage just like is a never-ending, just, you know, 80s cheese camp gore fest that is an absolute must-own movie for, you know, horror fans like me and probably you guys and stuff. And, you know, Edge of the Axe is something that, you know, I was kind of felt like that might be, but like I said, I had this feeling that, you know what, it just probably isn't. And as I said, I decided to play it safe, and I'm glad I did. But what I'm getting at is this movie doesn't even really have, I mean, it's got a few bits and pieces of cheese that I laughed at, but that was like probably maybe 3 or 4 bits, you know, at max. But one of the most cheesiest things about this movie that's really kind of fun, but not fun enough to spend $28 on it, is this computer. Whenever they're, you know, there's a couple times in the movie, maybe twice or something, where they're like, you know, chatting, internet chat. I mean, it's just a frickin' words in the middle of the screen. So every time they talk or whatever, or even, they don't even have to really be on the internet or whatever, they're just, you know, any characters typing on the screen, anything you see on the screen will be like, there'll be a robot computer voice saying like, blah blah blah, you know, it's like I opened the review with, that's a line from the movie, you know, they're having a chat like, should I come over? I don't think so. Why not? I'm depressed and I have a headache. Like, it's so that's like probably one of the the only things that's like cheese fun about this movie is just the fact that the very limited amount of screen time they're doing quote-unquote internet chat, you know, whatever you see on the screen is like read out by a monotone, depressed, suicidal computer voice, which is kind of fun, but, you know, it's, I don't know, it's just like there's a fine line between like just 80s horror movie retro cheese and then this thing, you know, it almost, somehow, you think it'd almost take more effort or to make a movie like this that somehow, like, you know, however many years later, 30 plus years later, would just not, I mean, it's just amazing how you can watch this and have it really not affect you in any way. A lot of times if a movie is bad, at least it's so bad it's good. I mean, this is just so bad that it's just bad. And that's really rare in these kind of, especially with Arrow Video releases and all this kind of stuff. I was really surprised, and once again, you know, very glad I listened to my little voice. You're welcome. Thank you very much. So what can I say? In my opinion, not much to see here. There's this, you know, I will say the kind of story arc and the bait and switch they kind of do with the movie as it goes on is kind of interesting, where the girl's typing away on her used computer that the guy gave her, and she sees all this stuff about the victims, you know, throughout the movie. I'm not even really comment on them, but throughout the movie, women get murdered and stuff. But like I say, the kill scenes are almost like the filmmakers have no interest in them and are just getting them over as quickly as possible. I mean, it seems like the filmmakers getting the whole movie over as quickly as possible. I mean, filmed as quickly as possible. Like, the kill scenes are just like, they come and go and you have absolutely no, maybe not absolutely no, but very little effect of like, oh, that was cool, or you want to rewind it or anything. It's just like, oh, that was a kill scene, oh. But what I'm saying is, you know, throughout the movie you've got a kill scene every now and then of some woman, and later on, maybe halfway through the movie or whatever, the blonde girl sees that the listing of the victims are on this computer or whatever, and obviously painting, you know, the picture of the kid being the you know, the suspect and stuff. And what I will say, you know, the movie does is a kind of an interesting, and I'm not even going to spoil it just because I don't know if you, I don't know. I just, for some reason, I don't feel like spoiling the little bit of a twist that the movie does with the killer or whatever. But I will give the movie, you know, props for doing a relatively competent bait and switch, you know, with the killer's identity and all this stuff, and you know, that's pretty much, you know, all the only thing that's really almost kind of good about the movie. I mean, it's really shocking how much of a, like, basically from beginning to end is just, in my opinion, more or less filler. The movie is just filler. And with a movie like this, you'd expect more, like a Spanish horror movie production, you'd expect more, you know, on-screen graphicness or like female gratuitous nudity. There's no like nudity at all, which was really just like surprising. I think before I saw the movie, I read on a forum that there wasn't, so I knew that there wasn't gonna be. But it's just like, I don't know. It was like someone who like made, you know, was a producer or director on Mr. Rogers or something, was lent out to be in charge of the making of this movie. Like it's someone who you can just tell has no interest like in horror movies that was behind making this movie. I mean, it just plays like a horror movie that has no interest in itself whatsoever about what it is. And in closing, you know, to wrap up the review, I will say, being a Spanish horror movie production, I saw at least two characters from Pieces, the guy who played the professor in Pieces, and also the woman who played the mom of the little boy at the beginning, who the little boy hacks up. And what's so funny, she gets hacked with an axe in this movie too. It's like another, you know, it's like as every movie she's in, she get killed with an axe. But you know, the two movies I've seen her in, she's killed with an axe. But the professor, I can't remember what the professor's name was. Was it Millard? Professor Millard? I don't know. That seems like maybe that was another movie. But the professor, the middle-aged professor that's unmarried and lives with his mother from Pieces is in this movie. Just bits and pieces of them. I mean, you know, not a real big deal. Basically, very, very, very underwhelming, and so glad I didn't blind buy this movie. I'm only going to be able to go as high as 3/4 stars out of 4 stars for Edge of the Axe. And like I say, if I caught you, you know, if you were thinking about getting this movie or blind buying it or whatever, or whatever, hopefully I saved you an upwards of $30. You know, this is just, as with every video or every review on my channel, this is just my opinion. I mean, if you guys blind buyed it or if you watched it or whatever and you enjoy it, that's fine. That's absolutely fine, and I'm glad to hear it, because it's really a shame if someone spends upwards of $30 on a movie and never having seen it, and it turns out to be just something that they just completely regret, which would have been the case if I would have bought this. I'm not exactly sure, you know, the special features. This is not a Blu-ray review, it's just a review of the movie, obviously, because I don't have the Blu-ray, luckily. So that'll pretty much be my review of Edge of the Axe, something that the cover makes it look really great, and then, you know, the Arrow Video trailer makes it look really great, but when you watch the movie, it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, they're really talented there at Arrow Video to make a great trailer and a great cover of this movie that's, you know, in my opinion, more or less just boring. Like a whole, you know, a lot of times, you know, you'll have horror movies or movies in general that are mostly good but have scenes of filler. Well, in my opinion, this whole movie, more or less, is just a filler movie. It's just really, really crazy. And when I think about this movie, it's like, gosh, I don't know if there's any movies that are really like this bad. I mean, I'm trying to think of really bad movies, but even like Star Crystal. I mean, even Star Crystal has got a lot of so bad it's good elements and stuff to it. Star Crystal's even fun to watch from just a stupid, like, God, that's so stupid. Whereas this, like I say, it's really hard to make a movie that's not at least so bad it's good. Like, this is just so, as I said, so bad it's bad. But anyway, I'm just kind of regurgitating what I've already said. Thank you very much for watching my review of Edge of the Axe. I hope I saved at least one person or more, you know, their money in blind buying this thing. As I said, if you like it, that's fine. I'm glad to hear it if you do. But in my opinion, being just a huge fan of these kind of movies and stuff, it's just like I was really, really amazed at how basically boring and uninteresting this movie was. So thank you very much for watching my review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.